الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام الأتمان المتلازمان على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين رحمة للعالمين وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين وعلى أصحابه الغر الميامين. أما بعد، فقال الله عز وجل في كتابه المجيد والفرقان الحميد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. وقال الله في مقام آخر يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك لمن الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Dear respected elders, my brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This being the last Friday of the blessed month of Safar, in which the martyrdom of Sayyidina Imam Hassan ibn Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhuma wa alayhim as-salam happened. And insha'Allah ta'ala, tonight's event, we will remember Sayyidina Imam Hassan and all the elements and information that we have in praise and in expressing the maqam, the status of Sayyidina Imam Hassan. Insha'Allah, we will discuss that with you, in addition to the urs of Sayyidi Badri Millat. But looking at the conditions of our culture, of our environment, of our surroundings, of people, of the type of lifestyles that we are living, it reminded me of the hadith al-Nabawi sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, which is actually captured in Al-Bukhari, which was considered as a Sahih hadith and narrated by Sayyidina Abu Hurairah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم لا تقوم الساعة حتى يقبض العلم ويكثر الزلازل ويتقارب الزمان وتظهر الفتن وتكثر الهرج وهو القتل حتى يكثر فيكم المال فيفيض أو كما قال النبي صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم. Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam makes this prophecy, the prophecy about the hour, the prophecy about the day of judgment, the prophecy about the arrival of the Qiyamah, the end of this world. And there are signs that Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam notified us of, that we would be witnessing. And when all these signs are witnessed, know that the time has come. The time when our opportunity to seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy will be ended. Our lives will be ended. The entire creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be ended by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That time and that date is unknown, except in the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and those who Allah has granted that knowledge. But that time, the arrival of that time, the nearness from our time to that end time could be very close, could be around the corner. And the signs that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has shared over 1400 years ago, about 14 and a half, 1,450 years ago approximately, are so clear and vivid that when we hear them, our hearts should feel the depression, the pressure of the truthfulness of those words and what we are witnessing with our own eyes today. The first thing that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentions in this hadith, where the time will not come until knowledge is taken back. Ilm is taken back. Ilm is seized, the word is. Yuhbid. That the knowledge is seized. Scholars have explained that by saying that it is the passing away, the death of scholars. Today we see how knowledge is sought. We find people seeking knowledge not from worthy ulama, rabbaniyin, scholars who are practicing Muslims, who have that in-depth knowledge of our deen. Rather, we are seeking learning our deen from random sources on social media, from YouTube, from Facebook or Instagram, from messages from Google. Random sources. There's knowledge, there's abundance of knowledge out there, but not every piece of information out there is valid. Not every piece of information is worthy of undertaking and practicing upon, applying in our lives. There's different understandings. So this snatching away of ilm from us will be that one of those great signs that will tell us, that will declare to us that the time is coming very near. That the end times are coming upon us when the knowledge will be taken away. Look around us. There's no enthusiasm for seeking knowledge. There's enthusiasm for everything else. Everything that Allah didn't want us to pay attention to. The thing that Allah wanted us to pay attention to, amongst them seeking knowledge, we don't do that. Even if we are seeking knowledge, which is something for survival, there is nothing wrong with it. But the kind of knowledge that Allah is referring to about how we should be good, practicing, obedient servants of our Creator, we are losing that. How do we know what is right and what is wrong? How do you decipher from what is haram and what is halal? That knowledge is going away. People are making their whims and desires as their fatwa. People are making verdicts out of their own thoughts, what makes them feel good, what they feel right in their head. If that feels right to them, they'll do it. And if it doesn't feel right to them, they won't do it. And that's the direction the ummah is going, unfortunately, for the most part. Yes, alhamdulillah, we have scholars. But the scholars are sitting alone. There's no students. There's no one to learn from them. The focus everywhere is for the optics, for how things look, how one wants to look, how one wants to be perceived as. But there's no focus on what the internal knowledge ought to be, how to gain that knowledge. The struggle that is part of that knowledge is far removed. There is no struggle. People don't want to struggle for seeking the sacred knowledge. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam goes on to say, وَتَكْثُرَ الزَّلَازِلِ, and the earthquakes will be increased. The number of earthquakes will increase. Allahu Akbar. Again, this is not a shock. So we see that great scholars are going away, are passing away, and we don't see replacements. We do not see replacements. We see great scholars, their work, whatever we have, once they're gone, their suhbah is gone. You know, as a side note, in our culture, especially in the South Asian culture, the education is, the syllabus is designed based on the Dars Nizami by a great scholar way in the back, Nizam al-Mulk. He was asked, why didn't you include tasawwuf, the Sufi understandings, Sufi teachings as part of your syllabus? Why was that left out? Because he said that this syllabus that I have designed for students to learn from basics all the way to the highest standards of education and knowledge, and what are the basic information or basic resources that one needs to know to be considered a scholar, that is all something that could be learned, could be gathered. He said, tasawwuf, this is not something that could be learned. Tasawwuf is something that is gained by sitting in the suhbah of hukama and ulama and sufiya and Allah's beloved servants, those who are in the path of Allah, those who are studious in the teachings of Allah. So those people are those who also have the knowledge and they have the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is God wariness, knowing that God is with them all the time. The awareness that Allah is with them, that makes them do the right thing all the time. When that suhbah is gone, then that training, that teaching is not there. And so that's why he didn't include it. But that is important. And for that, it is understood that you need scholars, you need ai you need sufiya, you need those pious men and women whom you need to sit with. Allah. Sit in the suhbah to gain the akhlaq of Islam, to gain the knowledge of Islam, to gain the nuances, because it is easy for you to find this is haram, and then you're done. But the nuances you do not get until you sit in the suhbah of scholars. You sit in the suhbah of aimma and great and pious men and women. Allahu Akbar. And then the zilzal. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran al-Karim says, إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا وَأَخْرَجَتِ الْأَرْضُ أَثْقَالَهَا. The time when the earth will have all the earthquakes until the final earthquake happens. وَأَخْرَجَتِ الْأَرْضُ أَثْقَالَهَا. And the earth will take out all of its secrets. Everything that was under the ground will come out. إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا وَأَخْرَجَتِ الْأَرْضُ أَثْقَالَهَا وَقَالَ الْإِنسَانُ مَا لَهَا. And the human being will yell out and scream, Ya Allah, what is happening? What's wrong with this earth? Why is it doing this way? Why is it shaking? Why are the earth beneath my ground splitting? Allah will go, مَا لَهَا يومئذ يصدر الناس أشتاتا ليروا أعمالهم إذا زلزلت الأرض زلزالها وأخرجت الأرض أثقالها وقال الإنسان ما لها بأن ربك أوحى لها. It is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants that to happen now. It is the will of Allah, because that time that Allah has destined for us to end all of His creation is that time, and that's when all these things will happen. And now we are seeing those signs. Right now, most recently, we have heard or seen scenes of the devastating earthquakes in Morocco and in neighboring Libya. Allahu Akbar. And then before that, we heard about it in Turkey. And then there was in Yemen. And then there's in Iran way before that. All these are signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that the time is getting closer. We cannot be oblivious. We cannot be ghafil. We cannot lose focus of this. We have to remind ourselves that these things are happening for a reason, and the reasons are mentioned in the Kitabullah. Allah has mentioned it very clearly, and through Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's teachings, we have this knowledge, information that when we hear and see, witness these things, we know that time is going to be ending. And so the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam goes on to talk about after the zilzal, وَيَتَقَارَبُ الزَّمَانِ وَتَقَارَبُ الزَّمَانِ مَرَّ الزَّمَانِ. The time will move so fast. Needless to say, 1,000 times we have discussed this in this shade ourselves. How days are moving faster. How months are moving faster. It just seemed like we had Mawlid al-Nabi just a few days ago. Allahu Akbar. It has been one full year. Now we are up again for another Mawlid al-Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It feels like my child was born just yesterday. It's been 3 years for some. It's been 10 years for some. Look at how days are passing by. School started. Somebody started school, and if they were in 5th grade, all of a sudden you realize that you're in 9th grade now. Your children, they were just born, and now they're grown-ups. They're 20 years old. Allahu Akbar. They're young. They were little children when you were carrying them. They couldn't walk. All of a sudden you realize that they are now shoulder length with you. They're standing right next to you. Allahu Akbar, talking to you eye to eye. These are the changes that we're witnessing. Fast-moving times. Fast-moving times. This is not by chance. This is by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is by the plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't make this out as something, okay, well, this is how things are going. No, things are not going by itself. Things are going by this way because of the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that will is telling us that this expression of the system of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to tell you something. The time is getting near. Fix yourselves. Remind yourselves. شَدِّ حِيلُكُمْ. Get yourselves ready for what is to come. And how easy that is by obeying the commandments of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if we don't do that, even knowing after all these things, the ulama are going away, zalazil are happening, time is moving faster, and then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam goes on to add one more thing. وَتَظْهَرَ الْفِتَنِ. And fitan will come up, will be obvious. No, fitan were there throughout the existence of humankind, throughout the existence of mankind. Fitan were there. Fitan were there starting from the time of Sayyidina, after the birth of the children of Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam. Fitan always continued. But focus on the word that Rasulullah is saying, وَتَظْهَرَ الْفِتَنِ. That the fitan will be very obvious, very apparent. You will hear about them more and more frequently. All kinds of fitan. Just look at one snapshot of one little town in this whole globe. Go back, because most of you are from Hyderabad, India. Just look at what's going on in Hyderabad. Look at what's happening in our cities, our own cities, the cities which were the centers of knowledge, of mashayikh, of scholars. What is happening? People are killing each other. People are cheating each other. Muslims are cheating each other. Muslims are not focusing on what Allah is pleased by, but they are focused on what pleases their own self or their children. We talk about recently. We were talking about the transactions of rehen, where people would who own houses would need money, and they would give it to somebody. The other person would then pawn it, take it as rehen. They would live in the house. They would use the house, live there for 1 whole year or 2 whole years, whatever the contract is, and at the end of the time, the money that they paid to, which is the value of the house, they would actually gain back that entire value of the house that they had given, and they would move out of the house. So essentially, they would be living in that house for 1 year, 2 years for free. Allahu Akbar. This is against Sharia, but this is prevalent mostly in Muslim cultures, Muslim families, and they don't see it as wrong. So here's another thing. There's haram, there is something that is prohibited, there is something that is wrong, and when commits a sin, a person knows that they're committing a sin and feels bad in their heart, feels a little pinch in their heart. But what happens when you don't even feel the pinch in your heart? What happens when you view sin not as a sin, but as something good? This is also a sign of what's to happen. A sign of the darkness of the heart turning black. Allahu Akbar. When no good deeds will be acceptable. When people are witnessing wrong things in front of them, but they don't say much because they are themselves doing it. See what we're going through. Fitan, they'll be so apparent that no one can avoid it. Everybody will see fitan around them, but they will not do anything about it. But they're there. They're so apparent, call it because of social media, whatever the reason is. But this is what Rasulullah said over 1,000 years ago, over 1,400 years ago, that you will be seeing more and more fitan in your time. As the generations move by, the apparency, the obviousness, the frequency of fitan will be more and more apparent to you, more and more obvious to you, so much so you cannot avoid them. From the time when we come from our homes to the masjid, we will see fitan. It is so apparent, yet we don't do anything about it. And it is very interesting. There is all these signs, but there is no despair. And I'll come to the hal for this situation. How to stop, to hold off the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is possible. We are witnessing these changes. We are witnessing that we are losing scholars. We are witnessing the zalazil. We are witnessing the time moving faster. All these are signs of the qiyamah. We are witnessing the expression of fitan more and more. And then the last one, in this hadith, Rasulullah says, that the qiyamah will not happen until these things are prevalent. And the fifth thing that Rasulullah mentioned is وَيَكْسُرُ الْحَرْجِ. Wal-harj is the qatl, Rasulullah says. Murder. Homicides. Killing. Rasulullah says harj. And then the hadith goes on to say the distance or in between the harj, or rather the qatl, and you, in between us and the qatl will be abundance of wealth. La ilaha illallah. Focus on the words of Rasulullah. The distance between qatl and us, ourselves, meaning we and qatl, in between is abundance of wealth that is overflowing, Rasulullah says. So wealth will be common now. Every person will be having a better standard of living. See that around us. Just by no educational background, no expertise, no professional training, no vocational training, students who are 10th grade pass, 12th grade pass are coming to the US. MashaAllah, good for them. And then what is happening? They're making money. They're doing odd jobs, they're building houses. So now you see the wealth is coming. It used to be that wealth would be from hard work, from education, from struggle, from construction or what have you, the standard from. But now there are more opportunities to make wealth. You just have to be at the right place at the right time. Allahu Akbar. So wealth is going to be common, and that is going to be the difference between maut, between qatl, between being murdered and yourself. Allahu Akbar. So these are the signs. And then look around us. I mean, again, going back to the town that we come from, how frequent murders have become. Muslim families, brothers killing brothers. I mean, this is not just a speech to get people riled up. This is reality that we are observing in our day-to-day lives, in our families, in our neighborhoods. This is not something far-fetched. This is something that we are witnessing with our own eyes in our culture. Sorry, am I over time? Okay. So I'll wrap up, inshallah. So we are witnessing this in our culture. So what do we do when we have these things happening? When we see with our own eyes the signs that Rasulullah has foretold for us that the Qiyamah will be coming. And so if we don't have our baggage full of good deeds, then we are in some deep trouble. And what we understand, what we observe in ourselves, when we deep down, when we look inside ourselves, we are no way close to being satisfied or making a satisfactory entrance in the majesty of Allah, towards the majesty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our shoulders are burdened with our sins, with our negative thoughts, negative a'mal. We are stingy when it comes to being kind to people. We are stingy when it comes to spending in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are always thinking negatively. We are always thinking about how to pull the leg of another human being, another brother who is succeeding. We are nowhere near what the expectations of Allah and His beloved Prophet are for us. Not in our thoughts, not with our tongue, not with our a'mal, not with our everything that we do in life. We are far, far removed from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from. And Allah has made it easy. But Allah has said one more thing. There are things that will be influencing that you have no control over. However, Allah says, Allah does not change the situation of people until they change their own selves. So there's that opportunity that Allah has given us. Change yourself. Bring that change inside of you. Bring that change within yourself and your family members and those whom you can influence. Because again, one of the things that Allah likes for us, and this ummah especially, of all the ummah that came from the start of time, is that we are those who invite people towards the good and stop people from what is bad. تَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَتَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ. So we have these opportunities to fix ourselves, to retain ourselves in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the good standing, with istiqamah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be holding us accountable for every zarrah of our deed, good or bad. وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ شَرًّا يَرَهُ. And on the Qiyamah, that whoever does a bad deed, even the size of an atom, you will be seeing your deeds in the Qiyamah. And those of you who have done even the slightest amount of good deed, the size of an atom, zarrah, a small particle size of a good deed, you will witness your good deed in the Qiyamah. So then the opportunity for us is to do more good deeds, so that the balance of our good deeds on the scale is heavier than the balance of the bad deeds, so that we are presentable in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have seen these signs. We are witnessing these signs that are going to get us in trouble if we don't fix ourselves. And Allah wants us to fix ourselves. Allah does not want to punish His creation. Allah has created us with love. Allah has created us with intricacies, with such complicated, with such fantastic design. Allah doesn't want to punish and annihilate us. Allah wants rahmah, His mercy, to be bestowed upon us. But then Allah wants to know how grateful we are by being thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by being a good servant and worshipper of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by following the commandments of Allah and His beloved Prophet, and stopping from all those bad deeds. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all the tawfiq that we are steadfast in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we avoid and save ourselves from all kinds of sins that is not liked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.